Hello and welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I am Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined today by Will Denner from the First Pacific Financial Studio. As always, they support high school sports, we support high school sports, and by extension, we support the community at large. So thanks again to First Pacific Financial for availing their space and their equipment to us so we can bring you the latest on what's going on with Southwest Washington high school sports. And today, Will, we kind of have a state of play episode for the sports that are still going: football, soccer, and volleyball. But first of all, with the football, kind of a rough weekend for most of our teams in the first round of the state playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I was at Camas last Saturday. Saw them, unfortunately, the 3 seed go down at number 14, Mount Si. Just a really gritty win for the visiting Wildcats, and it just it seemed like that was a team that we thought might be going further. And then you have Mountain View and Washougal and La Center. I know I might be forgetting a couple there, but overall just kind of a tough week for football. And the last two standing are Skyview and Seton Catholic. Neither team that won their league, but have continued to push on in the state playoffs.
Yeah, that's a wild development there when you say that the two teams that are still alive are runners up, but they will both have to go on the road. But to be the last two teams standing among the Southwest Washington state playoff qualifiers, definitely a feather in the cap to Skyview, which is in the quarterfinals for the first time, I think, since 2016, yes. I believe. Yes. So they go on the road to Eastlake. I was talking with our friend Meg Wachnick earlier today about what she thinks about that matchup, and she thinks that those two teams are pretty evenly matched. And obviously, Eastlake coming in with some momentum, but Skyview has that as well. Can the Storm go on the road and perform well in the quarterfinals? We shall see.
For sure, yeah. Skyview is kind of a trendy pick, I think, going into the year, is not only a league champ, but to make a deep run in the state playoffs. And after that loss to Camas earlier this year, they really haven't looked back. They seem to be firing on all cylinders. Last week, they had a great win over a Skyline team, and now they go on the road to see how they stack up.
Well, yeah, and when you have an experienced quarterback like Jake Kennedy and a playmaker like Gavin Packer, who plays on both sides of the ball, one or two big plays, as you kind of saw in the game again with Camas, where Mount Si, once they got that momentum early, it changed the whole tenor of the game. If Skyview can do that on the road, then all bets are off, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and give a quick shout out to Seton Catholic here, obviously, because for the Cougars' first ever foray into the 1A state playoffs in football, they are getting the full experience in that not only did they get a win, but now they get to go. It's almost like a rite of passage in the 1A state playoffs. You got to go on the road to some small town east of the mountains and face a really tough opponent. That's what they're doing with Kashmir this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Seton Catholic, I mean, to go on the road in their first ever state playoff game and win a shootout at King, I think it turned out to be a pretty good matchup for them, and now they get to continue on and like you said, go on a long road trip. And I think no matter what happens, I think they're now on the map as a program by winning, and the future is very bright for the Cougars.
Well, especially considering they have almost everybody back next year, exactly. and so definitely a statement season by Seton Catholic, regardless of how this weekend goes in the state quarterfinals. Lots to be proud of if you're involved in that Cougars program. But, obviously we touched on football, but it's coming down to the most exciting part of the girls' soccer and the volleyball season. I spent last weekend in Yakima at the 1A and 2A state volleyball tournament. We'll circle back around to talk about just how impressive Columbia River was in winning their third straight state title. Also impressive performances by Ridgefield and La Center. And then we'll look ahead to the 4A and the 3A tournaments where Camas, Prairie, and Mountain View are headed over there this weekend. But I want to start with girls soccer because if you're a fan of that sport at the high school level, no league has been more entertaining than the 2A Greater St. Helens Helens League, what with Columbia River, Ridgefield, and Hawkinson consistently qualifying for the state playoffs. Well, we have yet again two Greater St. Helens League teams in the Final Four. Number 3 seed Columbia River facing number 7 seed Ridgefield in the state semifinals coming up this Friday. A lot of people had an issue with Ridgefield being seeded as the number 7 seed. What do you think about that, and what have you heard?
Yeah, I think first of all, I mean, this is not a 1 or 2 year cycle for District 4, and not only the 2A Greater St. Helens League, but you look at a team like Tumwater, who's been there, didn't even get to state this year, unfortunately, because they had to go through River in that winner to state loser out game. But it seems like there has been this trend of continuing to maybe underseed some teams out of District 4 and maybe not look at the history so much, but maybe the record isn't as impressive as some other teams in the central and eastern parts of the state. Ridgefield in particular as a number 7 seed seemed like a little bit of a miss. When you look at that first round win they had that you were at over Squim, I think it was a 9-0 win. And yeah, so between particularly River as a number 3 seed and Ridgefield as a 7, I heard from somebody who was on that 2A state seeding committee who said that was by far the biggest disagreement on the committee this year, and particularly when it came to those two. But ultimately, that was not the opinion not shared by the majority of them being seated higher, and it was just kind of an outnumbered thing, and it ended up being that number 1 West Valley of Spokane ends up advancing to the state Final Four as well, and number 4 East Valley of Yakima, and now it's, no matter what happens, we will have a 2A Greater St. Helens League team in the state championship game for 4th season in a row, and that's exciting. But it's unfortunate, I think, that once again, to get there, the road was a little tougher. I mean, Ridgefield has to win a penalty kick shootout at number 2 Fife to get there, and then River has to get the rematch with R.A. Long to go through, and they accomplished it. They're back, obviously, but it seems like at this point it's no longer just kind of a annual joke of the 2A Greater St. Helens League being so tough in the playoffs. It's just, I think they're being misseeded in some cases.
Well, yeah, I mean, what more evidence do you need? You only just go back through almost every recent 2A state bracket and you find Columbia River, you find Ridgefield. You had that 1 year recently when River, Ridgefield, and Hawkinson all made the Final Four.
That's happened twice, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's almost like if you were to use history as a guide, you would give the top seeds in that bracket to the Greater St. Helens League teams, but I know that's not how it works.
Sure.
There's, usually what has happened is if a team like Columbia River has won the district, and entered with a really impressive resume, that they've been the number 1 seed, and then the other teams get seeded a little lower but play their way in. But this year was weird in that River wasn't the district champion.
Yeah.
Like you said, they got knocked off by R.A. Long in the semifinals. Ridgefield beats R.A. Long in the final, is the district champion, and gets seeded behind Columbia River.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that Columbia River won the regular season matchups against Ridgefield, but I still think, regardless, I don't think you want to get into a vis-a-vis argument versus Columbia River and Ridgefield. They'll have the chance to play that off on Friday, but it just comes down to me. Ridgefield should have been probably a 4 or a 5 at worst. 7 was criminal.
Yeah, as a district champion especially, and when you look at their only losses of the season are twice to River and Tumwater, that's it.
Yeah, so we'll obviously get a chance to see those two go head to head, and then the winner of that gets a chance, whether it's Columbia River looking to repeat as state champion or Ridgefield getting a shot in the state in the state championship match. We shall see. But also a really interesting storyline that you'll also be able to see at Mount Tahoma High School this weekend. La Center is in the state tournament behind just a fabulous player in Shayla Bradley, who is, for those of you who don't follow the academy scene and in soccer, she's one of the highest regarded players on the club level in the Northwest. Works in the Portland Thorns Academy, is one of their top prospects. Just a transformative player when she's on the field, and she obviously during the regular season she was able to spread the wealth, but come playoff time she is has really lifted the Wildcats to where they are in the state semifinals with a matchup against top-seeded La Jolla.
And for the first time in program history, I remember when we sat here back in, I guess it was September, when we were talking about just kind of looking ahead to some of the state soccer possible pairings and talking about how La Center, they had a phenomenal player in Shayla Bradley, but had never gotten this far in the playoffs before, and they kind of shook things up this year. They get a first-year head coach, and Bradley has really elevated her game even further. She's scored all 4 of their goals in the 2 state playoff games. This last Saturday they go on the road at Kashmir, pick up a 1-0 win, and goalkeeper Sophia Johnson had a great day, and the defense to get the shutout on the road, and now they get to test their mettle up north. And I think to be honest, I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most so far, is just getting to see that La Center team now go up and see how they can do at state.
Well, Shayla is even dominated despite dealing with a little bit of a knee hyperextension that she picked up right before the state playoffs. But her mom is the one who reports scores for La Center, so she calls in and we talk a little bit about how Shayla's doing, and she described what she's kind of changed her philosophy on the field, and she adopted what her mom described as the messy strategy, which those of you who follow soccer know that Lionel Messi, part of his brilliance is that he really kind of conserves his movement. Some of the haters might say he kind of just walks a little bit. Well, for someone who is allegedly just walking all the time, how come he ends up in the perfect position to score goals all the time? And that sounds like what Shayla is kind of prioritized as she kind of tries to limit how much stress she puts on that knee. But it sounds like it was one of those injuries that just needed about a week or 2 to heal up. So I fully expect Shayla to be the fully impactful player that she can be. And I think it just more or less speaks to the fact that even when she's not at 100%, she's scoring the goals that get La Center to a place it's never been before.
Yeah, the messy approach has worked well for her so far. And the Wildcats, although they will be certainly an underdog against Clahuia, the defending state champion and #1 seed, they opened the playoffs with I think it was a 7-0 win over Seton Catholic, who obviously La Center is familiar with. But still a really exciting opportunity for La Center to play both Friday and Saturday up at Mount Tahoma.
All right. Well, let's circle around to to volleyball. I'm doing the double dip. They used to in recent years do the 2A, 3A, and 4A state tournaments all on the same weekend in Yakima. That just turned into a really long weekend. You'd have some volleyball matches starting in the first round at 7 a.m. and some not getting over until 11 p.m. And so I think it was a good move by the WIA this year to split the tournament into the Bs, the 1As, and the 2As last weekend, and then the 3A and the 4A this weekend. Let's look ahead before we look back. Going over to Yakima this weekend, I'm going to be looking at the 4A tournament with great interest in that. We have Camas. Camas goes in as the #2 seed. They reached their by-district title game, which that by-district tournament is often one of the toughest in the state when it comes to almost like a preview of the state tournament. So Camas gets to the title match in the by-district tournament, falls in that one, but still gets the #2 seed. I think the Papermakers are very well set up with their depth that they have, with their defense that they have, namely with libero Haley Ryder. That Camas, they made the quarterfinals in 2022 and 5th place in 2021. I think they're set up to, I believe they can at least make the semifinals, if not get a spot in that championship match.
It seems like one of their best teams in recent memory for sure. And I think that was the by-district title game actually their first loss of the year. Is that their only one? Yeah, and they beat that same Olympia team earlier in the year, so they've now split those two. It seems like they're in a great spot as that #2 seed, and now they get to prove it and see how good they are.
Yeah, and so obviously Kendall Mayers is kind of an engine that has made that go, but they just have, that was the case in the past where she really carried that. But I think they just have so much depth, so much, they have multiple options on attack. And then, one of those teams that I just don't think makes a lot of mistakes. And that gets you a long way in high school volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but a couple other teams from the area that are going over in the 3A, Mountain View, I think that was one of my bigger surprises from the bi-district tournament. The Thunder with a gritty performance getting into the state tournament. They are in the state tournament, well, for the first time since 2018, but more impressive, this is the Thunder's only second berth in the state tournament since 1993. Wow. So 30 years, this is only the second time Mountain View has made the state tournament. And so the Thunder are, obviously with the 3A being such a big classification in the state, they have an expanded bracket. They are a number 18 seed and will face a loser out game right off the bat at 8 a.m. Friday against number 17 Bellevue. The winner of that gets into the double elimination part of the bracket, but we'll have to go against number 1 seed North Thurston. But I think for Mountain View, getting to the state tournament is a great achievement. And, hopefully from the Thunder's perspective, they can get that win in that initial loser out game, get into the bracket, the 16 team bracket proper, and hang around for a weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mountain View finished third in the 3A Greater St. Helens League. And, two tough teams in Prairie and Kelso ahead of them. And then they go up to that bi-district tournament and get wins over Silas and Peninsula. They get to the semifinals and end up facing Prairie in that third, fourth place match and finish fourth. I mean, that's pretty awesome stuff from the Thunder.
Oh, absolutely. And Prairie goes in as a number 8 seed. It's their second straight state berth. They finished 6th in 2017 and 2018. But like you said, Prairie, they had a tough league matchup against or through the course of the 3A Greater St. Helens League, they were tested by Kelso, I think is a way to say. But I think this is a case where that state tournament experience is really going to benefit the Falcons. They have a first round matchup against number 9 seed Gig Harbor. They win that. They're likely going against top seeded North Thurston, which will be a tough matchup. But the Falcons obviously trying to reassert themselves as consistent qualifiers for the state tournament. So they are back for a second straight year.
Yeah, for sure. And they were a team that had been undefeated for a long time this season. I think if I remember correctly, their first loss actually was to that same Camas team in that 5-set thriller. And they had to run through a tough league to get here. And it'll be interesting to see what they can do at state.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're taking Camas to 5 sets, that shows you can do a few things.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't kind of reflect a little bit on this past weekend. Columbia River Volleyball, I can't say enough about what they did, not only this past weekend, but this season. Columbia River, for those of you who haven't followed, they win their third straight Class 2A state championship. Again, for the third straight year, they beat Ridgefield. The way it kind of looked to me there, in past years, the first Columbia River team that won a state title in 2021, it was, great senior leadership on that team. You had Riley Reeves, you have Carolyn Hansen, but a program that really hadn't been there yet. They, I thought, kind of knocked off a favorite Ridgefield in that first state championship match. The next year, obviously, it's the Lauren Dreves led team. They beat the Spudders again in convincing fashion, and I thought from the first state championship to the second state championship that River team had taken a big leap forward. Well, the leap that this year's Columbia River team took from even last year, I thought was quantum.
Yeah.
I can't recall a more dominant performance at state that I've seen, certainly from a Clark County team, perhaps maybe any team statewide. I think if you took all the teams, 4A, 3A, 2A, that you can make a real strong argument for Columbia River being the best team in the state. Yeah. Bar none, regardless of any classifications. The way they rolled through this tournament was just unbelievable, never even tested. It says something when you're in a state semifinal match against a good Burlington Edison program, a program that's won state championships in this past decade. And the match is 3 minutes old and you're up 14-0 in the first set. I mean, that's just the way that Columbia River blitzed through teams this year at the state tournament. So I really felt that, when you look at Ridgefield, it's as much of a accomplishment that they were able to make the state championship match, because I thought in this year in the 2A bracket, you had seeds 2 through 8 who were really well evenly matched. And any match between those two, any of those 2 through 8 teams was going to be a dogfight. And Ridgefield, they lost the first set in all 3 of their matches leading up to the state championship match and came back and won, beating teams like number 3 Ellensburg, beating number 2 Linden in 4 sets. But while all those 2 through 8 teams were here, Columbia River was in a completely different universe, and the Rapids showed that.
Yeah, I mean, Ridgefield to get to 5 straight state championship matches is a phenomenal achievement, as you said, and to be seeded 6th this year and still make it back there. I mean, it's something to be very proud of for them, regardless of the fact that they've run into just an absolutely dominant River squad now for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I think it I got the sense before that state championship match that Ridgefield approached it as kind of like they were, obviously they wanted to give River their best shot. But I kind of felt like they were approaching it with, let's just enjoy every moment. They were dancing during the warm-ups to some of the music that was being played. They were really kind of enjoying the whole scene where they shut down the lights and do introductions with their glow necklaces and everything. And so they were just kind of really soaking it in. But you look across the net in Columbia River, they were, not a lot of emotion. They were just on a mission the entire weekend. And when you have a player as skilled as Lauren Dreves with a supporting cast as skilled as she has around her, it's a recipe for just complete and utter domination.
So obviously Lauren Dreves and Lizzie Andrew are now graduating. How do you feel like they're set up for success in the future?
Oh, I think even if you take the seniors, obviously a great senior class, Macy McCoy stepping into the setter's role and just doing a phenomenal job there. And then some of the other, supporting casts like Eliogi, Evely Winger, I'm forgetting. Logan DeYoung. Can't forget, a great role player that can play at the net and also get a few kills. They're going to lose a lot, but the way Columbia River year after year just continues to reload. I mean, even at that setter position where I know the hitters get all the attention, but that setter position might be the most important position on the court. You've had 3 different setters in the last 3 years, all of whom have gone on to be basically arguably one of the best setters in the state. Macy McCoy, no drop off from her predecessor, Sophia Warden, who had no drop off from her predecessor, Carolyn Hansen. So not only are you going to have some of the younger players, I believe, step into those roles, you have another Dreves in Sydney Dreves, who's going to be the number 1 attacking hitter, someone who I heard she's already had talks with, I think Boise State reached out to her. So she's starting to get on the Division I radar. And so I fully expect Columbia River to be the favorite when we gather again next year. Now, obviously a lot can happen there, but I think that's more of a testament to just the program that Coach Brianne Smedley has methodically built there at Columbia River. They do their mental strength exercises, they do their team building exercises. So it's more of like a all-in, full-on. I'm gonna struggle to find the right way to describe it, but almost like a lifestyle brand that they do there, where it's just, they're not just being tested physically, but mentally too. And, that's Coach Brianne Smedley's specialty, and she runs the elite competitor athlete.
Yes.
I'm going to misstate what it's called, but it's a brand basically that she's developed to instill confidence and mental fortitude in young female athletes, and you see that in action there.
Sure.
And obviously with just a dominating performance.
It was a great story too by Meg Wachnick to kind of get a peek into both of those programs and kind of how they prepare behind the scenes to be the two best programs in the state.
Yeah. Obviously can't take anything away from Ridgefield. Lizzie Andrew, I thought, had a phenomenal tournament. Yeah. I mean, she showed everybody why at 6'5" with the length and the jumping ability she has, why she is headed to Stanford, and I think should be an impact player at the Division I level, joining her older sisters, Natalie at the Naval Academy and Allie at Baylor, being three straight Andrew sisters from Ridgefield going on and playing at D1 is pretty impressive.
It's been a great run for them. Yeah.
And then we'll end with Le Center. I mean, Le Center kind of came in. I thought they were a little bit underseeded at number 7, despite being undefeated. And I heard some people say, no, that's actually kind of fair because traditionally the Trico League and the District 4 hasn't been very strong statewide in volleyball. But I think the Wildcats really showed they belonged in the Final Four, obviously with the way that a gritty 5-set win in the quarterfinals against Cascade Christian, another team that was undefeated and given the number 2 seed. Yeah. At that point, Le Center showed that they have ascended to among the elite 1A programs, and they're another team that has almost everybody back. 2 seniors, they're going to be tough next year.
Yeah, best state finish, I think, since 1995, and now they get almost everybody back next year, so that's really exciting for them.
Well, and Coach Simony O'Brien, we were kind of talking after the whole thing and just sort of basking in the glow of that accomplishment. And she was on the 1993 Le Center team, and at least 3, if not more, mothers of current players were in that run where from 93 to 95, Le Center went 3rd, state champion 3rd.
Yeah.
And so this is everything is set up with so much of that team coming back to putting together another multi-year run. 3rd this year. Who knows? Maybe, if history repeats, they could be possibly chasing a state championship next year.
Yeah, it seems like they're definitely set up to be back next year, no doubt.
Well, this is so much fun this time of year. And even if we don't have a lot on the football plate to consume us, we got a fun weekend coming up. You'll be in Tacoma at Mount Tahoma High School following the 2A and the 1A soccer. I again will be in Yakima where I will I will accept no Yakima slander on my timeline. I think Yakima is a great place, especially for food and the way they put on a state tournament, whether it's basketball or volleyball. And while you all were getting dumped on with rain over here, it was dry in the Palm Springs of Washington.
Yeah, fingers crossed that the rain is at a minimum this weekend. I know it'll be cold up there. At least it's not. Shoreline is the previous home of 2A, 1A state soccer. Now they moved to Mount Tahoma, but it should be an exciting atmosphere up there in addition to our 2 football teams that are on the road.
All right. Be sure to follow it all at 360preps.com. We will be back next week. Again, thanks again to First Pacific Financial, and we will see you then.